So the particle part we have completed now. Let us move on to rigid body dynamics. So before we go to the rigid body dynamics, we'll be first beginning with the system of particles, and then we will say the system of particles are rigidly attached to it. And then we'll be studying some properties. So the main topics we'll be covering here is this Chasles theorem, the statement, then how the rigid body interacts with the forces, interaction of rigid body and forces, that is, what happens when force is applied on a rigid body, will it move forward or will it also have a rotational effect? Then we'll be computing the center of the mass and then how the object moves. Then we will also discuss about this angular momentum. We have defined it. We have to see what these expressions are. Then we will talk about this mass distribution and the tensor of inertia matrix. All these are derived from the angular momentum expression, R cross mv. So you have to remember that. Then we will talk about moment of inertia, principal axis of inertia, then Euler's equations of motion. That is the key thing. And then dynamics of a spinning top. We will give an example. We will take Earth as an example and see the precession effect on that. Okay, so this is what we will be covering in this rigid body related. So Chasles theorem we have already encountered in a way, in an indirect way. So we talked about motion of a frame. Okay, so we told that motion of a frame is something related to motion of the origin and then rotation of the coordinate system. So once we talk about rotation, you have to talk about instantaneous axis of rotation. So a coordinate system's motion can be described by the translation, that is the origin's movement, and rotation about an axis passing through the center. So instantaneous axis of rotation. So since rigid body and coordinate frames are associated with each other, just one moment, I will pick up this phone call. Sorry, I am back now. So the frame and the coordinate frame and the rigid body are associated with each other. We had already discussed this. Just for any rigid body, we can fix coordinate systems on that. Similar to for the Earth, if you imagine axis of rotation and one more axis passing through the Greenwich meridian and another orthogonal to it in the east direction along the equator. So when the Earth rotates, the coordinate system also rotates with it. Therefore, if you have a rigid body, it is enough to describe the motion of the coordinate system. So therefore, Chasles theorem is in that sense straightforward. That is, motion of a rigid body can be described by the displacement of any point. So here, instead of talking about origin, you can take any point in the rigid body and then talk about the displacement of that point. And another set of motion which is described by rotation about an axis passing through that point. So this point will be taken as the origin. Origin need not be center of mass. It could be any point in the rigid body. We can fix the coordinate system. Usually, we fix the origin at the center of mass. So the rotation magnitude is going to be independent of the base point. So the rotation is independent of this base point. So at any instant, the general state of motion of a rigid body will have some angular velocity vector. That is the direction or the axis is the instantaneous axis of rotation. So that is what the Chasles theorem states. So can you get a picture of this? What is happening here? So what you have to remember is there is a rigid body, you associate a coordinate frame with that. Once you associate a coordinate frame, then you have to talk about origin. So origin can be any point in the rigid body. So then the complete motion can be described by a translation and rotation about an axis passing through this coordinate system, the origin. That's all. Okay, so translation is usually expressed by concentrating usually. Okay, so what happens is we always take the, okay, so this is for rigid body. In the case of rigid body, we have to talk about translation of the center of mass. So therefore, translation of a rigid body is usually obtained by assuming that the mass is concentrated in. We have to give the expression for that. We will be shortly doing that. And then you apply the usual particle mechanics to describe the motion. But for the rigid body, sorry, the rotational dynamics, we have to compute something called as the angular momentum vector. So we had the linear momentum vector for the translation motion. So here we have to compute angular momentum vector, which depends on the mass distribution. So that is what will give us a term called as the tensor of inertia.
Sir?
Yes.
So this translation part, according to Chasles theorem, it can be applied at any point, right?
Yes, it can be applied to any.
So then why are you taking center of mass?
Center of mass is typically taken for a rigid body. It's not necessary. I will show you an example. Then it may make sense. Okay, it's not necessary. Center of mass is usually taken for some ease, like you will get some principal axis of motion and things like that.
Okay, sir.
The mass distribution is usually described by this quantity called as the moment of inertia. So the equation of rotational motion is usually represented with respect to this moving coordinate system rather than the inertial coordinate system. For a translatory motion, the equations of motion are simple if it is inertial coordinate system. We had already seen if it is a moving coordinate system, you have to express the equation of motion using the 5 terms, what we saw in those derivations earlier. But for the rotational dynamics, because we are talking about rotational dynamics, so if you fix the coordinate system to the body, the equations will be much more simpler. We will be deriving them. These are called as the Euler's nonlinear equations of rotational motion or the motion. Okay. So in this picture, what is shown is we have shown the instantaneous axis of rotation, and then there is a vector. There are 2 points on the rigid body A and B. Any 2 points on the rigid body can be associated with a vector also, that is RBA vector. So these 2 points are also having the position coordinates RA and RB. So at any instant of time, you can imagine this RBA to be rotating with respect to the instantaneous axis of rotation given by this omega. So the inertial frame is your capital XYZ. So this is just a pictorial representation of what we talked about. So there are so many points in the rigid body. At any point, you have to imagine the rotation in this way. At any point of time. Let me open one more copy so that we can have picture in mind. So position vectors RA and RB are measured in the inertial frame in this example. RBA is the position vector of B related to A. So the assumption we have made is the body is rigid, therefore the length from A to B is not changing, but its direction may be changing. So this is the observation. Then we start computing the velocities and things like that. So RB is given by RA plus RBA from this figure. If you wish to compute the velocity, then RB dot is RA dot plus d by dt of RBA. But what is d by dt of RBA? Magnitude is not changing. D by dt of RBA is simply omega cross RBA. That is we use that same expression which we discussed earlier. Except that you don't have to worry about RBA dot because the magnitude is not changing. So the velocity VB can be thought to be VA plus omega cross RBA. Of course, we are doing these things which we will eventually use it in your final expression. Let us see how to use that later on. So here the VB and VA are your absolute velocities. So similarly, if you want to do double derivative, you have to take once again do d by dt is your thing, d by dt of omega cross RBA. So by product rule, you get this d omega by dt cross RBA plus omega cross d by dt of RBA, which is once again omega cross RBA. So this is your double derivative. So you have angular acceleration also playing a role. So these are for points A and points B in the rigid body. AA and AB are the absolute accelerations of the points on the rigid body A and B. You can do this for every other point in the rigid. There are hundreds of points. Of course, we have to see how to talk about rotation. That we will do shortly. So alpha is called as the angular acceleration, which is d omega by dt. These are all straightforward things. So one should remember that when you are computing these expressions, all the quantities should be expressed in the same frame. It need not be inertial frame. It could be any frame. We have already seen these computations. All the quantities in the expressions for absolute velocity and absolute acceleration are measured in the same frame. We will not be inertial frame. You can simply say same frame. That should be enough. This word is not required here.
Sir, if the frame is not inertial, then the absolute velocity or acceleration will include other terms also, right?
Yeah, what I meant is when you are computing this quantity, after writing this expression, you could always say that AA was expressed in some coordinate system. The same coordinate system should be used for expressing alpha, RBA, and everything else. This expression holds good because we considered the inertial reference frame. At any instant of time, these quantities could be expressed in any other frame. So then at that instant of time, if you wish to compute this expression, you have to simply make sure that all the vectors are in the same frame.
Okay, sir.
See, alpha cross RBA you can compute only when everything is in the same frame. So that is the intention of this.
Okay, sir.
It should not be in body frame, one in the inertial frame, something in some other frame. That is not allowed. All should be in same frame. That d omega by dt, you should be careful. So omega is a vector, so it may be found as a sum of sequence of angular velocities, each measured related to another. Okay, so let us see how. So angular acceleration, if you use moving frame XYZ for the convenience of analysis, then everything else should be in the same frame. So omega also you can consider in the, even though it is the inertial You are talking about rotation with respect to the inertia. This whatever omega is given here, it can be either in the moving frame or in the capital XYZ. So if it is resolved along the moving frame, then once again we have to talk about di by dt. So d omega by dt rel is this particular expression. Okay. So these things will become alpha is d omega by dt rel if and only if these two quantities are same, if they are measured in the same frame. I don't know, this will only confuse you. Just think about it. I don't want to go into the detail now because we have to move on to other things. Just think about it. If there is anything, let us come back to this again. This is just a subtle point. Okay, so I think we will move on to the definition of rigid body. This is what is important for us now. So the degrees of, how do you define a rigid body? Before that, we have to talk about how
Separation
many
between.
yes. So before that, we have to talk about degrees of freedom for a particle. How many degrees of freedom are there for a given particle in a three-dimensional space, of course? Only its position.
6
So
degrees.
can you, yeah, that is 3 degrees of freedom. So can you talk about rotation of a point? It's meaningless. Actually, you cannot define what is rotation of a point. If you want to precisely specify where a particular point is, you simply say that it has these XYZ coordinates. So rotational quantity does not exist for a single point. So any mass point in the space has 3 degrees of freedom, which is the translational motion. This XYZ. So do mass points have rotational degree? No, the answer is no. So basically, in order to talk about rotation, that is, rotation basically means some kind of relative motion. You require probably at least 2 or 3 points. Okay, we just think about this. These are some, anyway, side questions for this. In general, if we have many points, n number of points which can freely move in the space, then the number of degrees of freedom would be 3 times n, where 3 represents the translational degree of freedom for each particle. So therefore, we will get if xi, yi, zi are the points for I equals to 1 to n, there is 3 degrees of freedom, and you have 3 times n for n particles. Then imagine n to be number of molecules in the free space. So for vibrational string, how many degrees of freedom are there? If you have a string, each point on the string
Is of freedom.
Yeah, it can take any function. Basically, you have to imagine a function now. You can think of the amplitude as the height of this vibration string.
Sir, string is attached like both end or it is free?
You can attach it. Doesn't
So then we have
there's
two.
no, but in between the string can take any shape, no? So basically, we are talking about functions now, actually. When you talk about the vibration, yeah?
Each point in the string can either move in x or y direction, right?
Yeah.
So don't you have 2 degrees here?
No, but each, you imagine x or y only, let us imagine, but each point can move. How many points are there on the string?
Sir, it won't happen that one point, if it is moving in x, other point will move in y. So all should move in combinedly in one direction.
No, when you say vibrational string, I am talking about a string which is flexible. You imagine you place a string on your flat surface. The string can shape so many shapes. So how many number of shapes are there? Even if you associate one shape with 1 degree of freedom, how many number of such shapes you can give? It's a function. So functional degrees of freedom are infinite. This you have come across, no? This vibrational degrees of freedom. The string. I do not know, am I making sense or you have to imagine you have a thread in your hand. So how many shapes this thread can take even on a two-dimensional plane?
So we have stretched the thread, right? Like on a, we have some tension in the thread. So it should be fixed at both the ends.
It doesn't matter, I'm saying. Even if you fix both the ends, in between you can make the thread to take any shape.
Okay, sir.
Then how many shapes are there or how many functions are there? Basically, this is boiling down to finding out how many functions are there. So this is infinite. Of course, the infinite number of points are there already on the string. That is another statement. Okay. Suppose the rigid body is made of particles or atom. How many degrees of freedom will it have for the rigid body? When you say rigid body, what do you mean by that? Any 2 points in the rigid body will remain at the same distance. So how do you approach this problem for the degrees of freedom of a rigid body? Suppose
The center of mass.
Yeah.
So like the translation of one particle will determine the motion of the other particles,
Right.
and rotation will also determine, like one particle's rotation can make, we can see that other particles are rotating at the same omega. So I think it was 6 degrees.
No, rotation we have to carry, we have not defined rotation. Therefore, what we should say is simply every particle has some degree of freedom, but when this moves, other also moves. So we have to include the constraints now. So how many physical parameters that we will discuss now? The location and orientation are completely fixed by specifying the positions in space of any 3 non-collinear points. Do you accept this? If you have a rigid body, and then if you have 3 points in the rigid body, if you know, and if you can tell these 3 points here, in fact, you can tell every other point in the rigid body. Is this true? Let us look at this third bullet now. So basically, you fix a coordinate system to the rigid body. That is the point this is making. You fix a coordinate system. It need not be orthogonal coordinate system. Suppose without loss of generality, if you had fixed a orthogonal coordinate system, the points in the rigid body are fixed. Therefore, when you move the rigid body, the coordinate system is also moving with it. So with relation to the coordinate system, every point is in the same location. So therefore, it is enough to specify the positions of any 3 non-collinear particles. Is this an acceptable definition for a rigid body?
Yes, sir.
So you need to know only about 3 points. So let these 3 points be x1, y1, sorry, x1, y1, z1, x2, y2, z2, and x3, y3, z3. So this is the key definition. Okay. So once you accept this definition, then we can talk about adding constraints and everything. So if you look at three particles, you would have expected that 3 times each of them has 3 degrees of freedom. You may say that. Okay, so we will reduce that now one by one. So there are 9 coordinates, it appears. There are 9 sets of numbers. However, the distances between these two, all these points are same. That is x1 to point 1 to point 2 and point 2 to point 3 and 1 and 3. All these distances are same. So we add these 3 constraints. So 9 minus, so this is reducing your dimension now. So 9 minus 3 will be 6. So there are how many degrees of freedom now?
6.
6 degrees of freedom.
6 degrees of freedom.
Yes. So the key definition is you start from here. First, we have to define what a rigid body is very precisely. So this is your, sorry. This is your key definition. So once this definition is accepted, then it is easy to talk about the degrees of freedom. So you have to talk about 3 particles and its degrees of freedom. So three coordinates can be eliminated and you have only 6 degrees of freedom. And these turn out to be translation and rotation. So one of you was asking about whether it should be center of mass. We will see it shortly now. It need not be. So Chasles' theorem basically is saying that motion of a complete rigid body can be understood as a translation of any one of its points. It need not be the center of mass, but typically people take it at that. And rotation of the object about an axis passing through this point. So this is what Chasles' theorem states. Let us take an example and then see how it happens. So this is the example. On the left hand side, you have the ABC. You can see that the center of mass is not that dot. It is, can be anything. We are talking about movement. Okay, so therefore, kind of kinematics, you can say. For describing the kinematics, you don't have to worry about which point and all. So any point is moved to this location, suppose translation, and then with respect to this point, you can do a rotation. So your A double dash, B double dash, C double dash is the final. So can you show that you can do the same thing if you had translated the point A? You can translate the point A to A dash, and then you have to apply rotation with respect to the axis passing through that point. So here, what was the axis passing through that point? It is perpendicular to the board. Will it hold good here?
Sir, I think the translation will be to a different place for A.
Yeah, correct. So it need not be A dash. Excellent. So what should it be? A should be translated to A double dash actually, in that case. And then you do the same rotation, probably, okay? I'm just guessing. You can check it out later on. So don't be misled by this diagram that A should come to A dash and then only we should rotate. For if I had chosen this particular point and if I get the final orientation A double dash, B double dash, C double dash, and if I choose some other point, then that initial translation is going to be a different point, location. It will be done in a different way, that's all. The intermediate part will need not be same. Here the intermediate A dash, B dash, C dash need not be same if you consider some other initial points. So just this as an exercise, check it out. What will happen if you wish to rotate with respect to by moving some other point first, A or B or C. Is the problem statement clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So now we will take one more consideration now. So we have, in general, rigid body has 6 degrees of freedom. Suppose if you take a rigid body and fix one of the points, how many degrees of freedom will it have? Go back to this definition. If all these 3 points were moving, then you had 6 degrees of freedom. So if you fix one of the points, think of one of the points as origin now.
3 degrees.
It will have only 3 degrees, and that is the rotational degree of freedom you have. Okay, if you fix one of the points in the rigid body and then allow it to move, then that motion is called as the rotational motion. It is similar to your coordinate system. If you have a coordinate system and if you fix the origin and then move the coordinate system, how can you move? That motion is your rotational motion. It's exactly same as that. Okay, it's enough to consider the coordinates of only 2 points now, because you have fixed one and then one of them is fixed, so you have this additional distance constraint. So what we have is only 3 variables can be eliminated and 3 degrees of freedom, which is called as the rotational degree of freedom. Okay, so one more example is if a particle is moving along a fixed curve in space. How many degrees of freedom does it have? Answer is given here. How do you imagine? If it is moving along an x-axis only, how many degrees of freedom does it have?
So the particle is like, can it rotate, sir, or is it a point?
No, particle means point. Particle and point are associated or isomorphic or whatever it is. They are identified with each other.
1
Particle
degree.
is not bigger.
1 degree.
Okay, good point. So there is only 1 degree of freedom. Even if it moves along the circle, it is also 1 degree of freedom. You can imagine that basically when you say 1 degree of freedom, how many parameters do you require to describe the position of the particle? You have probably come across this during the integration of something. So similarly, if it is moving along a shapeless fixed curve, the curve can be any shape, but if you fix the curve, then since it can move only along that curve, it has only 1 degree of freedom. It can be described by only one parameter. So this is called as the parameterization. Usually, I think somewhere you would have come across this parameterization when doing some integration and other things. Probably in math you could have come across. But if you take a deformable medium, such as a liquid like water or whatever it is having infinite degrees of freedom. I think the liquid is deformable. Yeah, the shape can be changed. So it has infinite degrees of freedom. That means even a string whose shape can be changed also has an infinite degrees of freedom. So vibrating string, flexible bar, or a drop of fluid. Okay, these are only examples. Okay, so I will just pause here. Today's class is over. I won't go further because we will be entering the mathematics now. These are just some examples to describe some particles and things like that. So the class is over. Questions, if you have, you can ask. So what we have discussed today is the definition of a rigid body, which states that if you fix 3 points in the rigid body, then every other point can be described. That was how we defined the rigid body. And then we talked about the degrees of freedom. So the degrees of freedom of a general rigid body was 6 because we had to eliminate the distances between these 3 points. That is 3 constraints and 3 points. Then these 6 degrees of freedoms, 3 are called as the 3 are for translational and 3 are for rotational. Then we stated that if you fix one of the particles in the rigid body, the motion you obtain on a rigid body, it can be described by rotational motion. That means the motion can be described by orthogonal matrices. That is indirectly, that is what it means. Okay, so these are the key takeaway from today's things. Once we have this, other things are just for widening your thought process. We just have to remember what is a rigid body, the definition, and then anyway, we will be mostly talking about rotation most of the time. Any questions? I am stopping because some of you have some lab and exams.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, while considering any body, like we neglect this atomic vibrations, right? So if we don't neglect, we'll always have 9 degrees. Sorry, it will always have infinite degrees of freedom.
You come back again. If
Sir,
we don't.
Sir, while calculating the degrees of freedom for any body, we neglect the atomic vibrations.
Okay.
So, like if we don't neglect, then it will always have infinite degrees of freedom. Is it like that, sir?
But that will depend on the definitions of how you consider a body. So, if you think of body as composed of atoms, assuming these atoms are not moving, then that is what we are defining. So these are just generic definitions, okay? In general, the question will boil down to what is a particle and what should be defined as a particle. So if you think that the electrons can be thought of as particle, then if the atom is vibrating or something, then obviously it has infinite degrees of freedom in that sense. Under some constraints, of course. Within some constraints, these particles are moving in whatever way they want. But that all depends on the model. So what we are choosing is a very simplified model. All those things probably will come under the quantum effects and things like that. So what we are talking about is a simplified standard physics model. I do not know how to put that in a proper way. Newtonian physics, you can say. We don't consider electrons or something as vibrating or something. Our assumption is when we say atom, atom is a fixed point in a rigid body. Nothing
Okay,
interior to that moves. We are not considering this atomic dynamics, no? That is not there. That is not considered, yes. The implication of that, we don't know. We are not looking at that. This is only macro level equations.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, but a good question. Anything else? The class is over, okay? So anytime you can. Inba, are you there? For a long time.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Rahul?
Yes, sir.
Ah, good. Any questions? Okay, then probably some of you have class and exams, so we will stop here. I think this week, probably Thursday and Friday are holidays, I guess. Tomorrow, that talk is there. I'm waiting for the link. So once I get the link, I will send you. We will not have class tomorrow. Please attend the talk. I hope it will be interesting to you. It's a person from URSC who is working on the small satellites. Okay, have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.